Hey everyone, welcome back. It is time for another special wrestling episode. Campo and I are back reviewing the WWE Draft that happened kind of a week ago over the course of three nights, really, if you think about it. There was Smackdown, there was Raw, and kind of in between as well. But we're going to be going through the WWE Draft. We're going to be giving our thoughts on the picks. We're going to be giving our thoughts on where this World Heavyweight Championship tournament may be going. And if you tune in tomorrow, if you guys aren't subscribed, go and do that already, because tomorrow, Campo and I, we will have a special episode. We are going to draft our own shows. So we're going to take the current wrestlers from SmackDown, Raw, and NXT, and Campo and I will be building our own rosters and maybe doing something a little special with that further down the road. So make sure you have that bell notification turned on. Make sure you are subscribed to know what our picks would be if we had to draft a team for our own show. So with that out of the way, Campo, let's start. The first draft took place on SmackDown. It took place on was 2 weeks ago? It was, right? April 28th. So there were 4 rounds. Each show gets 2 picks. So the first pick went to SmackDown because it was a SmackDown show. And with the first pick, they picked the bloodline of just Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa, not the Usos. So they were on SmackDown and they're staying on SmackDown. The second pick with Raw, first overall for Raw, is Cody Rhodes from Raw, stays on Raw. The third pick, SmackDown picks Bianca Belair, who is the Raw Women's Champion, now goes to SmackDown. And with the fourth pick, Raw picks Becky Lynch, who stays on Raw. So that's the first round. Right away, I don't like it when the champion gets drafted to another show.
I don't like the idea of drafting groups of people. I mean, in our thing, we did it because they do it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's very strange. What's the point of the draft if I could just be like, I'm going to take the Justice League? Okay, well, then now who do I pick?
Yeah. You just pick Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash.
Yeah. I find that very strange. And
unless they're an actual tag team,
I think that's the limit of what it should be.
Yeah, and not the whole faction.
Right? Like Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns should be separate, and the Usos should be their one thing, like they are.
Yeah. Because we see it again later in the show and on the next few nights.
That is what it is. I don't have much to say here so far. I expected this.
Yeah. So for the second round, SmackDown takes the Street Profits from Raw, and then Raw takes all of Imperium from SmackDown.
Yes, we really only want Gunther.
Yeah. But now the Intercontinental Champion is now going to be on Raw. It's a good showcase for Gunther. I kind of like that. Edge goes from Raw to SmackDown, and the fourth pick is Matt Riddle, who stays on Raw.
So immediately, and this is where we're going to hit this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing a draft, there's no chance, and like, I'm not even going to talk about it, but is Matt Riddle? No. Matt Riddle's not even getting picked, let alone going in the top, like, first day.
Spoiler alert, neither of us picked him.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't even think twice about picking Matt Riddle. He's a mediocre wrestler, a very mediocre character.
Yeah.
And
you just got a little bit of shine with Randy Orton.
Yeah,
but
you could put him in a good match if he faces Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
But at this point, look where we are. Well, how many picks have been picked?
There's 8 out of the 16.
Seth Rollins has not been picked.
Seth Rollins was not eligible on this night. He was eligible on the Monday night.
Okay, I still don't care.
How is Seth Rollins not your number 1 pick?
You had Matt Riddle go in the first round, and it gets worse. Prepare yourselves.
Yep, it does. Because with the third round, SmackDown chooses Bobby Lashley from Raw, and then Raw chooses Drew McIntyre from SmackDown, who's
going to leave the company.
Right? And then SmackDown takes the entire OC.
And it's like, hold on. If you just pick Drew McIntyre and then had to watch the entire OC go next. Like, how do you feel? Like, you lost 4 good wrestlers compared to one guy who's about to leave the company.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is all staged, but it's like,
but still,
the logic is stupid.
And then The Miz stays on Raw. Nobody cares about that.
Oh, The Miz on day 1. The Miz got drafted. Like, through the plethora of people you could choose to draft, The Miz should never be selected, period.
No, not at all. If he's selected, he's last overall.
This is already my issue here. So on day 1, you had The Miz and Matt Riddle get picked. The Miz and Matt Riddle.
Yeah.
And Solo Sikoa.
Yeah. First overall with Roman Reigns.
Like, I mind you, Roman Reigns. Okay. But Solo Sikoa? That you were like, that's what I need.
Right? Then in the fourth and final round, you have Damage Control moving from Raw to SmackDown. Nakamura moving from SmackDown to Raw. And then SmackDown drafts Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, which I've already said about the issue. You put your NXT tag champions on SmackDown now, and now they said, "Oh, we're gonna defend the belt on all 3 brands." Like, well, no, you were drafted to SmackDown. What do you mean you're defending the belt on all 3 brands? What's the point of the draft, right? And then Indy Hartwell, at least she relinquished the title the next night on NXT, but Indy Hartwell,
I think that's only because of the injury.
Yeah, that was part of it. So Indy Hartwell now is exclusive to Raw.
She gets picked next, right?
Yeah, she was the last pick overall of the day.
Okay,
yeah.
So let's talk about this. Number 1, I think if you're going to do what you're doing with those tag belts, you should just make it, there's only 1 set of women's tag belts that gets defended across all 3 things, because it's already such a weak division and you only have like 7 tag teams. Number 1. Number 2, you took Fire and Dawn and Indy
2 of the
Hartwell,
best women, 3 of the best women on that roster.
But diminishing returns in the sense of there was so many other people in the entire world that you could have picked, and in your first round, you chose to pick Isla Dawn and Fire and Dawn, and then Indy Hartwell, number 1, okay? And then who else got picked right before? Shinsuke Nakamura, a guy you never use, got drafted in your first round. And this is not because he's bad. This is like, I'm questioning the choices of SmackDown. You picked Drew McIntyre.
Raw picked Drew McIntyre.
Okay, so Rob and Shinsuke.
They picked Bobby Lashley. SmackDown took Bobby Lashley.
Okay, no, Drew McIntyre and Shinsuke are on Raw.
Yes.
2 guys that one guy you don't use, one guy who's going to leave the company. Then you picked an injured wrestler.
Edge went to SmackDown, which guy is
good for them. Congratulations. What I think is happening is they're trying to find new people for certain wrestlers that they can't think of who to put them into feuds with. They're trying to like shake up their
I think this is good for Shinsuke, because now he can get into higher profile feuds, a feud with Seth Rollins, a feud with, you know what I mean? Like a feud with Cody. Like, I would love a Cody Nakamura match.
Yeah, obviously we all would. Come on.
Like, and most
we would
likely
all love an 80% Shinsuke match against anyone.
But yeah, and then the next night, it's basically whoever was left over gets drafted if they want to draft, right? So Apollo Crews moves from NXT to Raw. Candice LeRae stays on Raw. For some reason now, Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville are a tag team. When did that happen? Wasn't it Chelsea
recently?
Green?
It was pretty recently.
Well, they're both going to be on Raw. Dexter Lumis stays on Raw. Hit Row stays on SmackDown. JD McDonough gets drafted from NXT to Raw.
Oh, that's a good guy that we forgot. Sorry, spoilers for our draft.
Lacey Evans stays on SmackDown. Maximum Male Models stay on Raw. Natalia moves from SmackDown to Raw. The Viking Raiders move from SmackDown to Raw. And Zoe Stark goes from NXT to Raw. That's what I'm happy about.
You waited this long to pick Zoe Stark, but you picked all that other shit ahead of it.
Yeah.
To me, this is like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. You've stripped almost all of the quality talent out of NXT.
Because there's another NXT guy that gets drafted later on.
So, but I do think, and this is a rumor on the internet, you'll probably be happy that they're bringing back the Johnny Gargano faction.
Yes.
Because they're all on the same company now.
Yes, they're all on Raw, and I think that's where that's going. And I think that's going to be something that's going to tell in the long-term story. All four of them are now finally there. Because at the end of that episode of NXT, Dexter Lumis carries Indy Hartwell out. So that whole faction is back together. So with that, we're going into night 2, Monday Night Raw. Because Raw is 3 hours, this had 6 rounds instead of 4. So Rhea Ripley is on Raw, and she's staying on Raw, which makes no sense because she's a SmackDown Women's Champion. They are still both being billed as the Raw and the SmackDown Women's Champion on opposite shows. They need to do the belt exchange.
Make them fight, and then at the end of the match, just hand over each other's belts. But just do it at the end of a match.
Yeah. Next, you have Austin Theory moving from Raw to SmackDown, which could be good for Theory. It opens up some fresh feuds for him. And they replace the mid-card belt that was on Raw. That was the Intercontinental belt, which Gunther has, which he moved to Raw. So now they got a belt on SmackDown. That could be good for Theory. My thing is, Austin Theory was picked ahead of Seth Rollins because Seth Rollins was picked for Raw next. Yes. Charlotte Flair stays on SmackDown, and that's
immediately after the draft announced that she'll be taking a time off from wrestling again.
Yes,
congratulations for another stupid draft pick.
I think that's why she just stayed on SmackDown and didn't really. And then Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are officially Raw branded now because Zayn was SmackDown and Owens was Raw. And the Usos are staying on SmackDown. So the entire bloodline basically is on SmackDown still. Then you have Judgment Day, the entire Judgment Day, not including Rhea Ripley because she was drafted separately. But they're staying on Raw anyway, so. Then you have the LWO, the whole faction, staying on SmackDown. Then you have Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez moving from SmackDown to Raw. Asuka moving from Raw to SmackDown. New Day moves from SmackDown to Raw. The Brawling Brutes stay on SmackDown. Trish Stratus stays on Raw. Karrion Kross stays on SmackDown. Ronda Rousey, we're at pick 15 already. Rousey and Shayna Baszler go from SmackDown to Raw.
Nobody
cares.
You drafted 45-year-old part-time, less than part-time Trish Stratus.
Mm-hmm.
Explain. What was the purpose of drafting Trish Stratus?
Name value. It's like, oh my God, Trish Stratus.
But she's barely ever there. And
she'll be there for a few weeks.
Really old.
Yeah.
Why don't we draft Yokozuna?
Exhume him from the grave.
They'll just put a picture of him and you'll wrestle against nobody.
Now, this is the name that I got excited for. LA Knight is staying on SmackDown. They're really starting to go behind LA Knight. And I honestly think one of the first Austin Theory feuds will be LA Knight, and he's going to lose the belt to LA Knight.
Okay.
We don't care for LA Knight.
I mean, I'm not very impressed by his wrestling skill. I think he knows how to use a microphone. I think he has a funny character. I don't necessarily think he's a title caliber wrestler, but in WWE that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is a thing, right? In WWE, the quality of the match is irrelevant. The only thing that matters in WWE is the outcome of whatever the match is.
Yeah.
You could put on an absolutely trash match as long as the outcome is what the fans wanted, and that's all that matters. Nobody cares about the quality of the matches in WWE, which is kind of disheartening.
Yeah, it is in a way. Which I forgot to mention also at the end of the first night when Fire and Dawn get drafted to SmackDown, they are immediately challenged by the worst tag team NXT has of Katana Chance and Caden Carter.
Who now are both drafted, aren't they?
Yep, we'll get to that because Braun Strowman and Ricochet move from SmackDown to Raw. Shotzi stays on SmackDown. Bronson Reed is moving to Raw. Staying on Raw. This one I'm kind of excited for. Is Pretty Deadly is going to be on SmackDown.
Hey.
Okay. Alpha Academy, which nobody cares about, is staying on Raw. Rick Booger's there. Rick Boogs is moving from Raw to SmackDown.
But he's still alive?
Right? Katana Chance and Kaden Carter get drafted to Raw. So they're on the opposite show of Fire
at this
and Dawn.
point, Emma has not been drafted.
No. And then the last pick is Cameron Grimes going from NXT to SmackDown. We knew that was coming.
So Ilya Dragunov has not been drafted.
Not yet, no.
Emma didn't get drafted, but Katana and
Carter
got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Explain.
Yes. So the rest of the people that were eligible for this draft got picked to respective shows on Raw Talk right after Raw. And once again, Raw had, how many people were here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 picks. Raw got 12 of the 14 picks.
Okay, read them.
Tozawa stays on Raw. Nobody cares. Dana
Brooks needs to go back to Japan. He'd be such a
star.
He's such a better wrestler than they let him be.
Yeah. What's her name? Dana Brooks stays on Raw. Nobody cares. And then here's your girl, Emma, moves from SmackDown to Raw. Grayson Waller goes from NXT to SmackDown.
Grayson Waller went in the afterthought of the draft, but you picked Katana and
Carter. Or, yeah.
Chance and Carter.
Chance. Yeah. Okay. Then you have Indashir, Jinder Mahal, Sangha, and Veer Mahan going from NXT to... I totally forgot about them. But yet you're leaving the Creed brothers down there.
Can I change my last pick?
You want Indashir?
Oh my god, I completely forgot they existed. But listen, how did they go after Chance and Carter?
Okay, Johnny Gargano stays on Raw. Los Lotharios, I totally forgot about them. Angel Garza and Humberto stay on Raw. Odyssey Jones. Do you know who Odyssey Jones is?
No.
Gets drafted from NXT to Raw.
Who's next? The what's the stupid superhero called? The Mift, the Shadow.
Piper Niven stays on Raw.
Yeah, no one
Riddick
cares.
Moss moves with his girlfriend to Raw from SmackDown. Tamina, I totally forgot she was still in the company. Goes from Raw to SmackDown. Tegan Knox goes from SmackDown to Raw, and Xia Li goes from
Tegan Knox. Holy shit, I forgot Tegan Knox was a wrestler.
Yeah. And then there's a list of draft eligible that were not drafted.
Do you remember when they brought Tegan Knox back and everyone was like, oh, this is it. They're going to do the thing with her.
Yeah.
They're going to put her back with
Dakota.
And then
Team Kick.
No one gave a shit about Tegan Knox and no one remembers that she exists.
Yep. I feel bad for her because Tegan Knox is a pretty good wrestler.
She was supposed to get signed. I don't want to be for sure here, but there was huge rumors of Impact and New Japan or Stardom that were going to sign her, and she ended up back in WWE doing literally nothing.
Nothing. I know. At least what's her name got a shot out of it was Dakota Kai when she came back. She got something at least out of it. But here's the list of wrestlers that were eligible that did not get drafted. Baron Corbin.
Yeah, he's going to get released.
Brock Lesnar. But they want to keep Brock Lesnar open for both shows. That's why he didn't get drafted. Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin.
That's a weird one for me. Do you think they're going to release them? Yeah, but I think genuinely WWE doesn't care about Dolph Ziggler anymore.
No? Okay, here's a guy that they kind of care about that they didn't draft. It was Elias.
Yeah, because I prefer Elijah.
Oh. Then Mustafa Ali was not drafted. Omos and MVP were not drafted. Von Wagner, eligible from NXT. And
it's funny.
Zion Quinn.
We know that the Omos thing doesn't even matter because he's on Backlash.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't get it. I don't understand what the point of being undrafted is. What does that mean? Eventually you have to get put on a roster. So
Oh,
how do you
that's
go
why she's
undrafted?
off. Ah, that makes sense why she was not on the. So they had a list of people that were not eligible due to various reasons.
Mhm.
Alexa Bliss was not part of the draft. Aaliyah was not part of the draft. Big E, Bray Wyatt, Carmella, Gable Stevenson, Logan Paul, R-Truth, Randy Orton, Robert Roode, Shanky, and Tommaso Ciampa. Most of them are out due to injuries. But
So they're just going to appear on one of the shows at some point.
But Alexa Bliss, I didn't know she's getting skin cancer treatment.
She's also been. She just came off doing. She came off doing that Masked Singer show.
Yeah, that's true
and then she's been running the circuit of like talk shows for some reason. Her and The Miz.
Yeah.
So I feel like she is what it is. But you could tell like a lot of those names are so big that you could see what they're gonna do. They're saving it to have like a
someone
huge
like Logan Paul,
one day.
Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, one day, oh, Alexa Bliss is back, and she's gonna be like, and everyone's gonna freak out.
So my issue with this now that we've gotten through everything, it's good for some of the guys like Shinsuke. I could see him now making a run in the tournament. They can maybe use him a little bit more on Raw, may have him make a run in the World Heavyweight Championship tournament, stuff like that. LA Knight is now, you got Cameron Grimes, even someone like Cameron Grimes or Grayson Waller. Like Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, maybe their characters are very similar. So I wouldn't put them in a feud, but Cameron Grimes versus versus Austin Theory wouldn't be a bad feud either.
Yeah, I mean, of all of those guys, Cameron Grimes is the least that I care about. Like, there's all this hype around him, but like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
He's fine. I'm more excited to see like JD McDonough, and I'd love to see Ilya Dragunov or Tyler Bates.
What if we got like someone like we get a rematch, JD McDonough versus Gunther?
Yeah, I just listen. Hashtag Tyler Bates on the main roster.
Yes, that needs to happen.
I don't get it.
Why isn't he there?
Braun Breaker.
Yeah,
I don't get it. Ilya Dragunov.
Ilya Dragunov. Like Dragon Lee.
Yeah, okay. Dragon Lee, they're doing that on purpose to have clout on.
Yeah, NXT. They're doing the Lee versus Lee thing, I think.
But yeah, I don't know, man. There's rumors right now, but by the time we post this video, it might even have happened that there's supposed to be 15 major releases by WWE, and apparently at least 6 of them are going to be major names. Which makes me think, didn't you just go through this whole little fandango of, oh, they're gonna get Jay White, they're trying to poach all these big names from New Japan, they're looking at Tonga and all this stuff, but you're gonna release big names? What? I don't get it.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
And maybe Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander are 2 of those names.
It could happen.
I'm sure Impact would love to scoop them up as a tag team.
Oh yeah, or even someone like what if someone like Dolph Ziggler gets released?
I can imagine Ziggler's going to get released.
Can you imagine Ziggler showing up at an Impact or at an AEW? Can you imagine what Dolph Ziggler can do for Ring of Honor if he shows up there?
Yeah, I think he's a big enough name that he's costing them a lot of money, and they would be very happy to just cut ties with him.
Yeah.
Especially the way they've been using
that they were going to draft Matt Cardona.
But Matt Cardona also said he's very happy on the being the king of the indies. That's what he calls himself. And he doesn't want to. And
it's a great character that he has. Yeah.
Yeah. And between him showing up and having good matches on Impact and him literally rocking everyone in NWA.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. But yeah, I could see Dolph Ziggler being one of the names being thrown away. But with that out of the way, guys, thanks again for joining us. Let us know in the comments who are the winners, who are the losers, what would you guys have picked for your own draft. And tune in tomorrow. Like I said at the beginning of the show, if you tune in tomorrow, a very special episode. That's right. You are getting 4 videos this week. 4 of them. 5 if you count Spider-Man on Friday. But we're getting Monday to Friday, you're getting a full week of videos Campo and I will have our draft. There's going to be a spreadsheet. We're going to reveal picks. We're going to let you know who our top picks are in the video. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you have that bell notification turned on. Make sure you are in the know for when that video drops. So with that out of the way, thanks again for joining us. Goodbye and good night.